Howdy there, Isaac here. Intros are boring, so we're basically going to skip the intro. So without further ado, let's see what may have happened if Tambourine survived. Story starts now. About a day had passed with Vegeta explaining everything he knew about the Frieza Force and Namek. Tambourine listened to everything the Saiyan had to say regarding Namek, curious as to the world his father hailed from. While the Namekians wanted to off Vegeta, Goku wanted to fight the prince once his arms healed. But he wasn't the only Saiyan wishing for the prince to live, as Raditz was having the best laughing fit he's had in ages. He couldn't believe these weaklings managed to beat Nappa, let alone Vegeta of all people, but they did it. Earth really was worth coming to if he got to see Vegeta pleading for his life. Now, as for Nappa, well, the brute was in a coma and didn't show any signs of waking soon, but the Z-Fighters still took turns watching over him. Now while this went on, Kami, Popo, and Bulma talked atop the lookout about a certain alien spaceship they had at their disposal. However, the scientists revealed she and Piano had already collaborated and made a spaceship, one which should do the trick. She does have Popo show her the Kami's ship just so she can get Namek's coordinates and reverse engineer his ship, but this only confirms her theory. Her ship, indeed, is better than Kami's, but it's not quite made to carry a large amount of people, which means we'll still have a divide between the Z-Fighters. Tambourine wants to go to Namek, and Krillin and the others don't feel the need to train, aside from Piccolo and Garlic. While they're slightly more powerful than Goku and Base, they don't want him surpassing them, and so decide to wait for Dr. Brief's ship. Bulma offers to go as well, and by offer, I mean she forces everyone to let her go. Piano also wants to go, but he says he needs to stay, something which Tambourine vehemently disagrees with. He says that Piano is more of a Namekian than any of them there, and so deserves to see Namek more than he does, but the pterodactyl counters this. With knowledge of the Frieza Force and the Saiyans present on Earth, they'll need strong people on both planets. Tambourine is strong and honorable, and so should be the Demon Clan's envoy to Namek. Besides, they need someone to stay and protect Earth, and Piano offers to do just that. The demon wanted to argue with his brother, but Piano made a good point, so he decided to trust in his judgment, but promised to take him next time they go to Namek. He said goodbye to Yolk, making him promise to keep Piano and the rest of the Demon Clan safe while he was gone. The Namekian then boarded Bulma's ship and left with her, Vinegar, Spice, and Krillin. Tien did want to come, but after hearing both Goku and Piccolo would leave, he didn't want to leave Nappa here alone, and so opted to stay on Earth. The journey to Namek is filled with days of image training, and no, fake Namek does not exist. They miss it due to their faster engines. Once on Namek, the squad lands and Tambourine takes a minute to just soak in the view. The lush blue grass, the water filled with an abundance of life, the slight breeze and croak of frogs in the distance, it all reminded him of the Demon Clan base at home. It was so peaceful, but off in the distance that peace was disturbed. The group encounters Moori's village just as Frieza's group does. Vinegar and Krillin want to hide, able to sense Frieza's massive power, but once Tambourine sees the elders executed and Dodoria aiming a finger towards Cargo, he can't just sit back any longer. The demon flies in, kicking the grunt while Spice, Vinegar, and Krillin grab Moori and the kids. Interestingly enough, this means not only Moori, but the warrior Namekians get to live, since Tambourine attacked right as they arrived. The group manages to get away with a well-placed solar flare before going to their hiding spot within the cave. Once there, the group finally gets a chance to talk with Moori and Dende. While the children can only think of Guru and Nail, Moori is much more suspicious of the Earthlings, mostly Tambourine. He eyes the demon up, recognizing him as a source of evil, but Krillin manages to defuse things a tiny bit, saying that Tambourine was the one who went in and saved them, after all. Dende and Cargo accept the demon with open arms, but Moori and the warriors are still suspicious, though they agree that someone should tell Guru about what's going on, as long as it isn't Tambourine. This slightly angers the group, but the demon is fine with this deal. He tells Krillin, Spice, and the children to go to Guru's while he, Vinegar, and Moori find other villages and warn them, also attaining their Dragon Balls so they can hide them. Once they all split up and eventually find one village, Vinegar wants to leave after attaining their Dragon Ball, but Tambourine can't do that after witnessing what Frieza and his men did to the other village. There's about 10 or so villagers there, and while he knows it'll be cramped, he offers to lead them back to the cave so they'll at least be hidden from the force. While many of the older Namekians find it suspicious that he'd want to help them, the younger ones find this a viable option. It takes a bit of convincing, but the elder eventually relents and follows them back to the cave, where Bulma very awkwardly tries to make space for them. Moori admits the demon seems very kind-hearted, even saying he can sense very little evil in his heart, but that Guru told him of Spawn like him. This prompts the mutant Namekian to ask about this, and Moori tells him a story Guru once told him years ago. Apparently long ago, there was an evil Namekian named Slug that waged war with evil mutated Namekians like Tambourine. This makes the demon think about his own father, how he did the same exact thing, how he himself was once like that. Moori can tell Tambourine was trying his best to change and leave that all behind, and tells him that he's done good for someone with such a past. Tambourine slowly nods his head, though he still feels isolated. He knew he looked nothing like Piccolo, not even Vegeta recognized him as a Namekian prior, but after landing on Namek and seeing all the regular Namekians, he felt like a demon all over again. Moori's words did make the demon feel a little better, but he still felt self-conscious about his scaly skin and wings. However, once Krillin and Spice arrive, a new problem arises. The two talk about Guru unlocking their potentials, something Tambourine could now sense, and wow, they were really nothing like they were prior. Krillin was now around 20k, while Spice was a comfortable 25. But they had an even bigger problem, and that was Zarbon. Apparently some soldier named Kui landed on Namek in search of Vegeta and managed to pick up Krillin's power spike. That's when Zarbon, Dodoria, and Kui all arrived at Guru's looking for the Dragon Balls. One thing led to another, and Nail ended up defeating all three, though Zarbon managed to live and contact some people called the Ginyu Force. The group had no idea who that was, but if someone that powerful was asking for them, then Tambourine had a bad feeling about this. He travels to Guru's along with Vinegar in hopes of getting their powers unlocked as well. Once arriving at the tower, Nail basically refuses to let Tambourine in, though Guru quickly fixes that. Nail is confused why Guru would do such a thing, but the Elder ignores him and looks into the demon's eyes. "You are different from how I imagined. I thank you for saving Dende and the others. Despite your looks, you are a true son of Namek. Yet, there's something in you that I can sense, something none of us have." Guru reached out and touched Tambourine's forehead, a torrent of energy causing the air in the room to swirl around, pushing everyone back. In one swift move, the demon had gone from around 10k to 42k, something that amazed the other fighters, but both Guru and Tambourine felt something different. Whilst gaining a large amount of power, some of it felt dark, tainted in a way, but Guru didn't say anything. Vinegar also had his power unlocked, him now being at 23k, and he loved the power, starting to gloat and flaunt it, though Spice reeled him back in. However, this did have some ill effects on Guru, him being quite exhausted from using this power so much. He offered the last Dragon Ball to the fighters, telling them to be quick if they wanted to make their wish. With this, Tambourine, Spice, Krillin, and Vinegar had 2 balls, versus Frieza's 5. But the demon, being as cunning as always, began to hatch a plan as he looked at the barely alive Zarbon that Nail had interrogated. However, as the events of Planet Namek went on, the Z-Fighters on Earth were making their way towards the planet. Goku, Piccolo, and Garlic were training hard in 100 times Earth's gravity. However, they weren't the only ones. Goku, knowing Vegeta was trouble but would be a valuable training partner, took him on the ship, and once the trio were stronger than the prince, he was given a senzu and allowed to train with them. Garlic had no qualms with this, as he knew he could just blow up the ship and use his immortality to survive. But Piccolo, who had fallen behind the Saiyan Namekian, was a bit hesitant. He didn't trust either Vegeta or Garlic, especially since the prince often gave him the side eye and often hit him with cheap shots. But this isn't your mother's Piccolo we're talking about. This one was still conniving and brutal in his own right, often hitting Vegeta with cheap shots of his own and using tactics to outwit the prince. Before long though, the Saiyans blazed past Piccolo, with Garlic right under them in terms of power due to his immortality and relentless lust for power. Even though Goku was initially weaker than he was in canon, by the time they get to Namek, they're all far stronger. Goku and Vegeta are both around 100k, since the prince did have to catch up to everyone. Garlic is at 95k in his transform state and has fixed his speed problem in it. And Piccolo is at a comfy 80k, though he's livid he couldn't keep up. Though he does have a plan to surpass them, if things go the way he thinks they will. Now, while the boys were traveling to Namek, Tambourine had used Zarbon to sneak into Frieza's ship. He and Spice disguised themselves as Frieza 4 soldiers and easily gained access to the room where the Dragon Balls were located. Once they knew the balls were there, Tambourine raised his key, signaling to Krillin and Vinegar that it was time for a little distraction. After putting a hole in the starboard side of the ship and distracting Frieza, Tambourine knocked out Zarbon and he and Spice flew off with the balls, easily stealing them from under the Force's nose. This brief victory did not last though, as only minutes later the Ginyu Force entered Namek's atmosphere and immediately caught up to the fighters. This time around, Tambourine is able to see Birder moving, though he's only fast enough to block the blue blur, while the others rush the balls inside. This little feat, however, causes the Force to take their enemies much more seriously, something that could only go bad for our heroes. In seconds, Recoome has Krillin and Vinegar on the ground, whilst Birder and Jace double team Spice. Ginyu himself bursts in and elbows Tambourine in the stomach, instantly taking him out of the fight. The demon watches as Recoome senselessly beats Vinegar, whilst Birder kicks Spice over and over. Several Namekian warriors come out of the cave, but they get tossed around like ragdolls, Recoome taking particular joy in torturing them in front of the Namekian children. All this happening while Tambourine is unable to move under the boot of the captain. He wishes he could do something, wishes he was stronger. Even after everything with Guru, he still wasn't strong enough to stand up to Frieza, let alone these goons. And now, all of his friends were going to die. But that's when he felt something. Something he hadn't felt in a very long time. In a fit of rage, Tambourine began pouring ki into his arm, it slowly glowing red hot as Ginyu laughed and launched ki blasts at the Namekian elders and children. In one swift motion, Tambourine sliced through Ginyu's leg, severing it like a hot knife through butter. The captain fell to the ground, confused as to what just happened, but within seconds the demon was atop him, and Ginyu felt what he thought was a searing hot knife in his chest. He then looked down and noticed the demon's hand was plunged into his heart, and only then did he begin to feeling the life leaving his body. The other members of the Force finally noticed their captain had been felled, them all racing towards him to help, but Tambourine didn't care. His eyes were boring into Ginyu's. The captain had seen eyes like that before, eyes filled with malice, but only now did he have a modicum of understanding for the emotions behind that look. He was scared of fading away, of dying like the weaklings he had fought against for ages. He tried to get those words out, the words that would allow him to leave his failing body, but this damn demon had a hand wrapped around his throat. The demonic creature was yelling at him, saying that these Namekians had families and friends, but Ginyu didn't care. He fought to remove the demon's hand, but his body was getting weaker and weaker by the second, and by the time Jace kicked Tambourine away, the captain had passed. The various members of the Ginyu Force gathered around Ginyu, attempting to aid him, but they all knew he was gone. After a quick cry, they all vowed to get revenge for their captain, but when turning around, they saw Tambourine standing, ready for a fight. There was something off about him though. His posture was all wrong, and there was this pressure emanating from him, this aura of complete malice. Spice, who was the only member of the fighters still conscious, knew this aura. It was similar to Garlic's, but he had never felt something like this from Tambourine. This was the aura of a killer, of a villain. The force attacked the mutant, with Jace launching a crusher ball while Birder and Raccoon rushed in. The demon slices through the ball with his hand, now glowing purple, his eyes looking up to meet Birder's, freezing the Snake Man in place. Tambourine attempts to slice through Birder, but in a split second the blue blur is gone, while Guldo is now in his place, panting heavily. This brief distraction allows Raccoon to hit the demon, sending him flying into the cave, causing it to collapse and reveal the remaining elders and children within. Raccoon then follows up with an eraser gun, though the demon is just barely able to catch it. Jace and Birder flank the demon, both firing blasts at him, which 2 Elder Namekians intercept, both falling dead right next to Tambourine. This causes the demon to roar in anger before flying towards Raccoon, shoving the eraser gun right back at him, resulting in a large explosion. The brute is left with heavy damage, though he was able to survive thanks to Guldo, who sees the demon staring at him and tries to run. But even with his time manipulation, the mutant catches up and slices clean through his neck. Birder and Jace use a combination attack on the demon, landing some serious damage on him. But in the rush, Birder is cut across the chest and crashes into the ground, though he's still alive. Tambourine is left burnt and battered, and Jace figures this is the perfect time to use his ultimate technique, the Crusher Volcano. He fires multiple Crusher Balls at the mutant, who slices through many of them, but is inevitably hit by several, ultimately falling just as a giant Crusher Ball crashes into him. Jace is left panting, but thinks he's won, as nobody could possibly survive that attack. However, when the dust settles, Tambourine is revealed to be standing, his body burnt and smoking, but still alive. Jace is left speechless as the demon runs towards him, hand glowing off and on with purple energy, and eyes crazed. The villain attempts to fire off one more Crusher Ball, but his fear causes him to stumble and take a second too long, allowing the monster to reach him. Just as he forms a Crusher Ball, his right hand is sliced clean off, but he does manage to kick his assailant away. The red magma is left screaming as he looks at his severed arm, while the demon finally falls unconscious. Jace looks around the battlefield, noting that he is the last member of the Force conscious, and that Tambourine could finally be taken out. However, that's when Spice stepped up and stared down the red magma. Both were injured and tired, and while Jace could have normally beaten him, with only one arm and running low on ki, he wasn't in any position to win. The Lieutenant of the Force simply flies over and grabs Birder before flying off, cursing the Z Fighters and promising that Frieza would avenge their captain. And with the looming threat of Frieza and the arrival of Goku and the others, that's where we'll be leaving things off for right now. If you guys like this part, I'd appreciate it if you severed that like button, or maybe even decimated the whole subscribe button force with questionably evil ki. My lord, I may hate intros, but these outros are so funny. I can't help but smile when scripting them and laugh when recording them. Anyways, I can't believe how freaking popular part 3 was. I was honestly expecting that video to tank, but it quickly became one of my best performing videos, and I can't believe how much you guys liked it. And speaking of you guys, holy crap, we're already at 424 subs. Also, shout out to 420. Was a big milestone. Definitely had to screenshot that. But in all seriousness, thank you guys. I really enjoy writing these what ifs, but seeing so many of you commenting and liking them as well makes it so much cooler. But I won't get too emotional now. We'll save the tears for 500. Anyways, you guys have a good day or night wherever you are. That's it for now. Bye bye.